That's a good one.
I mean, he used to host the Man Show. I mean, he's done some pretty outrageous back in the day.
Yeah.
You know, for he-he's and ha-ha's.
No, that's a good joke on top of a good joke.
Yeah, it's a good joke. Funny thing to say. He's had a real problem with Elon from the beginning of this thing, but it's like he's in this leftist thought bubble. He is in the most leftist thought bubble available, which is Hollywood. And, you know, and I think also, you know, he famously, there's some videos of him in blackface, and those came out, and he had apologized for them, and I think he took that hit and like really doubled down the other direction.
Joe Rogan and Megyn Kelly just joined forces to completely obliterate Jimmy Kimmel. And yes, it was every bit as savage as it sounds. Think of the harshest roast you've ever witnessed, then crank it up a notch. So what exactly did Jimmy say to spark this ruthless takedown? Stay tuned. This showdown is packed with jaw-dropping moments you won't want to miss.
Hypocrisy is alive and well amongst these sanctimonious leftists. From Kimmel to De Niro to Stephanopoulos, they want you to believe they're better than you, more virtuous, more decent. But we all know the truth. They lie. They sin. They do the very things they accuse you of and the things they say they would never do. Evil things. Like try to destroy people based on feigned outrage from which they spare their own side, or playing politics with a woman's.
Sometimes the universe delivers the perfect cosmic punchline, and this time it landed squarely on Jimmy Kimmel. Out of nowhere, two titans from opposite ends of the media jungle, Joe Rogan and Megyn Kelly, came swinging. Each with their own brand of fire and fury, they delivered a brutal, unfiltered takedown that turned Kimmel's moment into a masterclass. In public humiliation, raw, relentless, and downright delicious.
A fucking chance in hell that this is funny or gonna work. And when you see those flat, corny, late-night monologue jokes with no audience, Colbert, there's Jimmy Kimmel, there's Fallon. What they're doing is just like reading off of a teleprompter. So a bunch of really good joke writers wrote them some stuff, and then they're playing to the audience, and the audience is like laughing, so they get this feedback, and they know how to do that. They stand there, and there's applause signs, and then there's producers. There's the warm-up guy that's literally telling people to clap. They're like, okay, explaining to the people, okay, when Jimmy comes out, I want a big round of applause. Let's practice this right now. Ladies and gentlemen.
Let's kick things off with Joe Rogan, the podcasting powerhouse wrapped in a cage-fighting philosopher's body. This man doesn't do subtle. Subtlety is for people trying to dodge heat. Rogan's version of subtlety, bringing a verbal chainsaw to a conversation that needs trimming. And Jimmy Kimmel, he was about to learn the hard way what happens when you step into the ring with the undisputed king of podcasting, bare-knuckled, unfiltered, and ready to swing.
I will tell you, he's not the worst. The Daily Show has the worst ratings. They only have 366,000 people watching that show. During the Jon Stewart years, it was over 2 million. Now it's down to 300,000. Seth Meyers, absolutely dreadful. He doesn't even have 1 million, 778,000. I mean, in network television, this is, you don't have to pay for it. It's there when you turn on your TV, you plug it in. That's a dreadful number. Greg Gutfeld on cable, which you do have to pay for, it has more than double the numbers of Seth Meyers. Jimmy Kimmel, 1.5 million averaging, also equally horrible.
Jimmy Kimmel, the late-night staple known for celebrity chats, hit or miss monologues, and that tired bit where he pretends to hate kids while throwing them birthday parties on air. It's the kind of routine that's been coasting on nostalgia more than originality. Between the recycled punchlines and political jokes that crash harder than a Windows 95 reboot, Jimmy somehow convinced himself he was still the king of late night. Enter Joe Rogan, who didn't so much criticize as deliver a not-so-gentle reminder, Jimmy's not the king, he's the court jester, and the joke's getting old.
Tonight was the 96th Academy Awards show, and while you might have missed it, there was one clear winner. No, not Oppenheimer. It was sanctimonious leftists for their lead role in pretending they are better than you. Winner number 1, Jimmy Kimmel. For the 4th time, Kimmel hosted the Oscars before an adoring crowd of Hollywood stars who laughed and curried favor with the man who wore blackface so many times. Yes, some of the very same celebrities who wanted you to believe they were horrified after yours truly said in 2018 that people used to don dark makeup in order to imitate well-known black celebrities, and it wasn't a big deal, absolutely ate up the performance by Hollywood darling Mr. Kimmel, whose blackface costumes included his oft-repeated bit as basketball star Karl Malone.
Now, Karl Malone never seen no flying saucer himself, but if he do, that's gonna be a spooky.
Joe Rogan's takedown wasn't your typical lighthearted jab. It was a full-on verbal assault disguised as a casual conversation. Forget the friendly roast vibe of late-night banter. This was the podcasting equivalent of a cold slap in the face. Joe ripped into Jimmy Kimmel's stale routine, exposing just how worn out and formulaic his material has become. It wasn't about being funny. It was about being honest. Brutally honest. Rogan called out the lack of originality, highlighting how Kimmel's punchlines feel like political leftovers from a decade ago. When you're recycling zingers from 2012 and calling it fresh comedy, you're not pushing boundaries. You're phoning it in. And Joe didn't hold back. His critique was a wake-up call, a brutal reminder that Kimmel's been skating on past glory, clinging to safe jokes, and avoiding any real creative risk. In Rogan's world, that's like stepping into the UFC octagon without a strategy and hoping your opponent just falls over. It's not bold, it's embarrassing. But what really stunned everyone was the fact that Joe did this on live TV, where every word is dissected under a microscope. It was like watching a lion calmly explain why the sheep should have known better. The audience went quiet. Social media? Instant meltdown. Clips of Joe's takedown spread like wildfire, igniting every corner of the internet. And just when it seemed like Kimmel might catch a breath, boom. In walks Megyn Kelly, calm, composed, and deadly. If Rogan was the sledgehammer, Megyn was. The scalpel, cutting clean, precise, and leaving no room for comeback. Her strikes didn't need volume, just clarity.
Sort of self-censorship and the idea of being a more empathetic person is a good thing, right? But as long as it's reasonable.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is, the problem with that kind of stuff is it continues to go in the same direction where more and more things become forbidden and toxic, to the point where, you know, the Elon Musk joking around about my pronouns are prosecute Fauci. Jimmy Kimmel made a tweet back to him. He said, your pronouns are ass and hole.
Megyn Kelly's approach was the polar opposite of Joe Rogan's sledgehammer style, calculated, cold, and razor sharp. Where Joe was loud and blunt, Megyn was calm and surgical. She didn't crack jokes or throw cheap shots. Instead, she dismantled Jimmy Kimmel with precision, exposing the widening cracks in his credibility and authenticity. It was the kind of humiliation that doesn't hit all at once, but lingers, slowly burning long after the camera's cut. Megyn zeroed in on how Jimmy's on-screen persona has morphed into an awkward patchwork of forced humor and half-hearted activism. She made it painfully clear that the edge that once made late night worth watching had dulled into something safe, sterile, and pandering. Instead of standing for something, Kimmel seemed more interested in being liked by everyone. ADCU's strategy that left his comedy toothless and forgettable. She compared his act to a circus juggler tossing flaming swords that never actually catch fire. Sure, it looks impressive until you realize there's no real danger, no risk, no substance, just smoke and mirrors. Her delivery? Flawless. Like a veteran boxer landing hit after hit with quiet precision, while Kimmel stood frozen, blinking like a deer in headlights. And with that, the double takedown was complete, brutal, effective, and impossible to ignore.
This past 2 weeks, they had the Kennedy Center honors the other night where Joe Biden couldn't say Dionne Warwick. He kept calling her Diane, and he didn't know who Barry Gibb was. He kept calling him Billy. You know who else was honored at the Kennedy Center? You know who else? Billy Crystal. Just FYI, do you know who once opened up the Academy Awards in full blackface?
Oh,
Billy
yeah.
Crystal. Billy Crystal. And do you know who's going to be hosting the Academy Awards this year? Jimmy Kimmel. Do you know who's worn blackface repeatedly and spoken inner city sort of urban accent saying she needs to darn those socks? Jimmy Kimmel as Oprah, as a fat-suited, black-faced darning socks
Joe Rogan ripped through the comedic facade, exposing the stale, recycled core of Jimmy Kimmel's late-night act. At the same time, Megyn Kelly peeled back the glossy media image, revealing a host struggling to stay relevant in a landscape that's evolved far beyond him. Together, their takedowns weren't just critiques, they were a double knockout. Kimmel's image came out bruised, battered, and metaphorically crawling to the corner, hoping someone would throw in the towel. And the kicker? None of it was scripted. It was raw, it was live, and it was absolutely unforgettable. Now, let's talk about the fallout. Because in today's media world, a takedown like this isn't just a rough night, it's a cultural earthquake. Social media exploded into chaos. Memes, hot takes, reaction videos, and more hashtags than you could scroll through in an hour. People picked sides, dissected every word, and debated what it all meant for the future of late-night television. Joe Rogan's brutal honesty and Megyn Kelly's clinical precision became instant viral content. Meanwhile, Jimmy Kimmel was trending, and not in the way anyone wants. This wasn't just a bad look, it was a PR disaster. But more than that, it was a wake-up call. Late-night TV is no longer the undisputed king of commentary. Audiences are sharper, standards are higher, and the old formulas just don't cut it anymore.
And
Did he really?
Yes. And so then I read that, and there was people saying, please don't joke about pronouns. It's transphobic to joke about pronouns. So they were chiding him for participating in a joke about pronouns.
So Jimmy Kimmel was doing it. He was doing it too.
Yeah, he was doing it too.
Yeah. No, he was being accused of joking about it too.
So they were upset at him, even though he was attacking the appropriate person. He was doing it in a manner which is also construed as being transphobic. Like they were saying that his tweet is transphobic.
Do you think in that case, do you think that's him or a writer? Can't you tell?
Jimmy Kimmel?
Joe Rogan represents the new era of media, raw, unfiltered, and unapologetically direct. Megyn Kelly stands as the evolved critic, sharp and calculated, capable of cutting through the noise with surgical precision. And then there's Jimmy Kimmel, clinging to the past, recycling outdated material while the cultural current leaves him behind. It's like watching a VHS tape try to compete with 4K streaming, charming in a retro kind of way, but unmistakably obsolete. That's what made this live TV takedown more than just entertainment. It was a reckoning. A necessary moment that forced the spotlight back on a man who's been cruising on name recognition and a handful of worn-out catchphrases. Because in today's media landscape, fame isn't a bulletproof vest, not when you're sharing airspace with two of the most influential, sharp-tongued voices in the business. And just when you thought the night couldn't get worse for Kimmel, it did. In the most cinematic way possible. This wasn't one person lobbing insults. It was a perfectly timed, dual-pronged takedown. Joe Rogan, the verbal wrecking ball, and Megyn Kelly, the sniper with a mic, came at him from opposite sides. The result? A beautifully brutal symphony of destruction, so flawlessly executed, it could have been storyboarded by Marvel. The perfect storm for a man adrift on the bloated raft of his own fading legacy.
To obscurity, nobody's going to care anymore. It's like you're seeing it take place with late night television. Nobody gives a fuck about it anymore.
I know.
And it's slowly, you have a bad business model and you're not adapting.
Yeah, the creativity's gone for late night comedy, right? Like that's not really a thing anymore.
Rogan came in first like a bearded wrecking ball. Loud, unfiltered, and charged with the kind of righteous rage usually reserved for overpriced airport coffee. This wasn't just a critique, it was a demolition. He didn't pull punches. He pulled the entire foundation out from under Jimmy Kimmel's career with the verbal force of a barbell being slammed through the stage. Subtle? Hardly. Rogan's style had all the finesse of a bull stampeding through a boutique candle shop, and yet, it was brutally effective. Then, just as the dust began to settle and the audience was still reeling, in glided Megyn Kelly, poised, calm, and devastatingly precise. Where Rogan left chaos, Kelly brought clarity. She didn't yell, she didn't swing. She simply walked through the wreckage and pointed, quietly, surgically, at every flaw Kimmel had been glossing over for years. The outdated jokes, the recycled monologues, the faux edgy persona that hadn't evolved while the rest of the world had sprinted past. Rogan exposed the creative rot. Kelly highlighted the moral emptiness. Together, they peeled Kimmel back layer by layer, and like any good onion, the deeper they went, the more people watching started crying. from laughter or disbelief. Two completely different approaches, one mutual target. Rogan was primal, like an MMA weigh-in fused with a podcast. Rant. He attacked the hollowness, the mediocrity masquerading as charm. And he wasn't wrong.
Sunday morning show with Stephanopoulos into the evening Academy Awards broadcast with Kimmel, and ABC elevating, the blackface loving Kimmel. They, at the same time, fired Chris Harrison, host of The Bachelor, for trying to defend one contestant on The Bachelorette for saying, gee, I know I went to this antebellum party, a couple years ago. I guess I didn't see anything wrong with it. And all he said was, are we judging her by today's standards, or are we judging her by, old standards, whatever. He was basically trying to say, are we being too hard on her? Got fired. Chris Harrison has to be fired by ABC. I don't know why, because he's not a committed leftist, because he's not out there more saying all the terrible things about Republicans that Jimmy Kimmel says. So this is them saying, we get it. We're an ally, right? And I guess maybe they're trying to make up with their racist past without ever acknowledging.
Megyn Kelly's takedown had the calm, caffeinated precision of a top-tier prosecutor laying out a case with devastating clarity, like she was on her 4th espresso and just getting warmed up. If Joe Rogan smashed the walls down, Kelly waltzed in and neatly rearranged the ruins, letting everyone see how hollow the structure truly was. And poor Jimmy Kimmel, not a word. No rebuttal, not even a nervous chuckle to soften the blow. Just a man frozen in real time as his public persona got slow roasted like a Thanksgiving turkey in a segment he never agreed to. The best part? There was no dramatic face-off, no fiery showdown, no ominous soundtrack or flying furniture. This wasn't some manufactured WWE-style clash. It was psychological demolition done with finesse. Rogan and Kelly weren't even in the same room, and yet their critiques synced like a perfectly timed duet in a ballet of brutal honesty. No script, no rehearsal, just instinct. And the internet, it absolutely exploded. Think pieces sprouted, up faster than Kimmel's ratings were plummeting. Debate shows couldn't agree on who landed the bigger blow, Rogan with his raw, no-filter reality check, or Kelly with her elegant surgical strike. Twitter turned into a coliseum with fans, picking sides and hashtags flying like confetti. It didn't feel like a takedown, it felt like an impeachment.
Know what they saw. They saw what we saw. They saw the frail elderly man who needed help getting off the stage. They're just too chicken shit to tell us about it, because they accurately deduced that he could still be the Democratic nominee, and they don't want to ding him up. Maybe you give Barbara a pass. Who gives a damn what this singer saw or says? But you know what? Jimmy Kimmel happens to be employed by ABC, which happens to have a rather large news organization. And he has been one of President Trump's most vocal critics. Where are you, Jimmy? On vacation? Not good enough. You can still use your thumbs to send out a tweet. You could set the record straight right now, but you won't.
The funniest part? Jimmy Kimmel wasn't even the guest. He was the cautionary tale, the unintentional main event, the uncredited star in a viral humiliation saga, without even getting a single line. That's how deep this takedown cut. When the evidence is burning bright in 4K, who needs rebuttals? Now, the big question on everyone's mind, what happens next? Can Jimmy Kimmel claw his way back from a tag team beatdown by two of the most polar opposite media giants on the planet? Or has his monologue finally gone silent for good? Will he ditch the tired Trump jokes and maybe, just maybe, try original content? Or will he just keep doubling down, awkwardly playing everyone's politically correct uncle, desperately trying to stay hip with the younger crowd? One thing is clear, this wasn't just an off night. It was a live televised milestone, a rupture in the smug late-night facade. It exposed just how out of touch the format has become when someone like Kimmel, once the darling of snarky TV, can be so thoroughly dismantled without a single direct confrontation. So yeah, watch those clips, watch them slowly, with popcorn in hand, because what you're witnessing isn't just public humiliation, it's a generational handoff. The old guard just got dragged off its throne, not by angry mobs, but by two media juggernauts who didn't even bother to look him in. The eye while doing it, and honestly, that's the funniest punchline late night has had in years. So what's next for Jimmy Kimmel? Surviving a live double takedown from Joe Rogan and Megyn Kelly isn't exactly a confidence booster. He could play it safe, hoping the storm blows over and the moment fades into oblivion, Or maybe, just maybe, he'll take a long, hard look in the mirror and figure out how to reinvent himself before the next wave of media disruptors crashes through. One thing's certain, this moment will be replayed, dissected, and talked about for years. A cautionary tale wrapped in comedy, a masterclass in public humiliation, and a stark reminder that in today's media world, complacency is the fastest path to irrelevance. And let's be honest, watching Joe Rogan and Megyn Kelly deliver that kind of brutal, unfiltered clarity, it's the kind of entertainment we didn't know we desperately needed. Because sometimes, the best comedy comes straight from the cruelest truths. So grab your popcorn, keep your eyes glued to the screen, and get ready for the next chapter in late-night drama. Because if Joe and Megyn have anything to say, it's that the old guard isn't going down without a fight.